Warm greetings. Today is Tuesday, August 11th, 2026. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia. At the time of recording this video, it is 6:30 in the evening, local time in the Eastern Caribbean, where we continue to closely monitor the evolution of several tropical waves between the Caribbean and Africa. In particular, a tropical wave that is located near longitude 35 degrees west and which has a high probability of developing into a tropical depression. In addition, in the North Atlantic we have a low-pressure system that looks fairly organized. However, it maintains a low probability of tropical development of only 20% during the next 48 hours before conditions become less favorable for development. This low pressure was designated during the day today as Invest 93, and it is projected that the low pressure will continue on a track toward the north of the Azores Islands, so it is anticipated that it will not pose a threat to land areas. So, in this video I will be focusing on the tropical Atlantic region, that is, from the Caribbean to Africa, since some of these disturbances could approach or reach the Caribbean, particularly the wave that is located halfway across the Atlantic, and which was designated during the day today as Invest 92. Remember that the designation of an Invest means that the National Hurricane Center marks the area for investigation by specialized models, and with this designation we will have track and intensity projections. And although for now this wave is the one that the National Hurricane Center has marked with probabilities of development, it is possible that at 8 tonight they will mark the next tropical wave that is emerging from Africa, and which the models during the day today are beginning to project, could have marginally favorable conditions for development. So in theory we could say that the Atlantic is relatively active, particularly because we have the El Niño phenomenon, but during this week we have been monitoring a total of 4 disturbances with some probability of tropical organization. The first of them is associated with a tropical wave that is already approaching the Lesser Antilles, and which will bring an increase in rainfall during the next 48 hours, but it has already lost its probability of development thanks to the wind shear moving across the region. Now, the scenario is different for the second tropical wave, since the National Hurricane Center during the day today has continued increasing the probabilities of development, and at 2 in the afternoon it had a 40% probability of development during the next 48 hours, and a 70% probability of development during the next 7 days as it approaches the northeastern Caribbean. And although we still do not know exactly what its future track could be, this afternoon's model runs show us a weaker system that, therefore, could travel farther west and bring beneficial rainfall to the northern half of the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic at the beginning of next week. And if we look at the visible satellite animation, we can see how the first tropical wave has good rotation, and it is possible that the third tropical depression of the season or Tropical Storm Cristobal could form here. In addition, look at the other tropical wave that has just emerged from Africa, which looks quite active with good rotation and areas of thunderstorms. So it seems to me that the National Hurricane Center will soon also mark it with some probability of development. Now, as I have discussed during the last several days, the first tropical wave will have a window for development of approximately 3 to 4 days, but once it crosses longitude 55 degrees west, it will begin to feel the effects of the strong wind shear moving across the Caribbean Sea and toward the Atlantic. In fact, notice that the latest projection from the European model forecasts that by the weekend, southwesterly wind shear anomalies will be more than 30 knots above normal. In other words, this creates a protective wall for the Caribbean, and any disturbance that moves toward this area will be facing truly hostile conditions for strengthening. So on the one hand this is good news because it should not be a very strong system when it moves near or over the northeastern Caribbean, and instead it could bring beneficial rainfall to the region. Later I will discuss the projected rainfall accumulations. Now that the tropical wave with a high probability of development is an Invest, we have the first intensity projections in general. Notice that during the next 3 to 4 days the models project strengthening until it becomes a moderate or strong tropical storm, but beginning Friday it would start weakening thanks to the wind shear located over the Lesser Antilles. This is precisely what the global model runs show us. Notice that during the next 2 to 3 days the American model develops a tropical depression or tropical storm, but eventually and during the weekend, as it approaches the Lesser Antilles, it basically dissipates the system into a tropical wave when it moves over the northeastern Caribbean. Also notice that the American model for a period of about 48 hours also develops another tropical cyclone south of Cabo Verde, related to the new tropical wave that has just emerged from Africa, but the model projects that it will have a short duration and that it would then dissipate by the beginning of next week. And I wanted you to see the following animation where you can appreciate how the infrared satellite image of Invest 92 is projected to look. And notice that by Thursday or Friday we have a system showing some tropical organization, but already between Saturday and Sunday, as it encounters strong southwesterly wind shear, the rainfall and bad weather activity shifts toward the northeastern quadrant, leaving the circulation exposed. And as the projection showed, this results in the system possibly dissipating into a tropical wave when it passes near or over the northeastern Caribbean. In the case of the European model projection, it agrees very well with the American model. It develops a tropical depression or tropical storm during the afternoon hours on Wednesday and moves in a west-northwest direction, but beginning Saturday it starts weakening as it approaches the Caribbean and dissipates it into a tropical wave as it moves over the northern Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico between Sunday and Monday. The European model does not develop the tropical wave that is emerging from Africa. The German model, also with a similar projection, develops a tropical depression and tropical storm and beginning Saturday starts weakening it as it approaches the Caribbean. And other models, such as the Canadian model, also weaken the system as it moves through the Caribbean. However, it has a tropical depression or tropical storm crossing through the area, so we must continue to monitor it to finally see with how much intensity and how close it passes to the region. And for example, the United Kingdom model has a tropical storm crossing over the Lesser Antilles arc during the afternoon or nighttime hours on Saturday. So we really still cannot rule out that it reaches the region as a tropical cyclone, but we do know that it will have to encounter very unfavorable conditions for significant strengthening. And this is also what we see in the Ensemble projections from the different global models. For example, the European model Ensemble. Almost all of the members take Invest 92 into the Caribbean, but weakening or dissipating as it crosses the Lesser Antilles. Approximately 10 to 15% of them develop the second tropical wave that has just emerged from Africa. In the case of the artificial intelligence version of the European model, Invest 92 dissipates once it reaches the Caribbean and between 50 to 60% of the members develop the tropical wave that has just emerged from Africa. This is why I suspect that the National Hurricane Center will soon be marking this tropical wave with probabilities of tropical development. The pattern repeats when we look at the American model Ensemble, almost all of them dissipating Invest 92 before reaching the Caribbean. While the members of Google's DeepMind model, all of them also dissipate Invest 92 when it reaches the Caribbean, but interestingly many of them develop the tropical wave that has just emerged from Africa. So in the end we will see what happens with these two tropical waves and finally see which one, if any, manages to become Tropical Storm Cristobal. And since the wind shear will be largely protecting the Caribbean, I wanted you to see the beneficial rainfall accumulations that they could bring to the region. For example, the southern half of the Lesser Antilles could receive between 50 and 70 millimeters of accumulated rainfall during the next 5 days, while the islands of the northern Lesser Antilles could receive rainfall accumulations between 50 and 75 millimeters during the next 7 days, as could the Dominican Republic. In the case of Puerto Rico, the American model projects that eastern sectors could receive up to 5 inches during the next 7 days, which would definitely be beneficial in helping alleviate the drought affecting the region somewhat. In addition, regardless of whether the system arrives as a strong tropical wave, tropical depression, or weak tropical storm, it could be accompanied by some tropical storm force wind gusts. The European model projects gusts between 35 and 45 miles per hour affecting the northern half of the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico between Sunday and Monday. And as I mentioned during the day yesterday, for now there is no reason to worry. We simply continue monitoring the progress of these disturbances and hoping that in the end they arrive weak, but bring good rainfall activity. Well, here at Hurricane Info I will continue monitoring to keep you informed, and if you like this content, I invite you to give this video a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so that you receive notifications when I record new videos. I hope everyone has an excellent night. I will record the next video tomorrow. See you later.